Okay, so before we get started with this interview, I'm first going to give a quick description of Dr. Adam Dorsay. Dr. Dorsay is a licensed psychologist, and he's certified um, and a certified executive coach in San Jose, California. So he specializes in assisting high-achieving professionals, including tech executives and entrepreneurs. And in addition to that, he assists professional athletes with relationship issues, stress reduction, anxiety relief, and enhancing overall happiness. In addition to this, in addition to his private practice, Dr. Dorsey delivers engaging keynotes and trainings at institutions such as Microsoft, LinkedIn, and the California Psychological Association. He's the host of award-winning podcast Super Psyched, which features interviews with the diverse range of thought leaders, including NBA coaches, rock stars, comedians, and best-selling authors. Dr. Dorsey himself is also the author of Super Psyched, Unleashing the Power of Four Types of Connection and Live the Life You Love book, which explores four essential types of connection to self, others, and the world, and something greater, and offers practical guidance for achieving a more fulfilling life. So, with over 20,000 hours of individual psychotherapy experience, Dr. Dorsey has dedicated his career to helping individuals gain insight, heal, and enact meaningful change. He has delivered two TEDx talks focusing on men's emotions and the challenges of forming friendships in adulthood. So now, after this description, um, we'll get straight into this interview. It's nice to meet you, Dr. Dorsey.
Adi, it's great to be with you. Mark and Johnny, good to see you as well.
So I guess we'll start off with the first question, and then we'll just like rotate on and off on who wants to ask questions. So, we want to first get into more of your lifestyle and your career journey. So, first off, we'd want to know what inspired you to pursue a career in psychology, and how has this journey like evolved over the past few years?
Adi, it's a great question. And when I was about 13 years old, I was at summer camp and I said to one of my cabin mates, I want to be a psychologist when I grow up. As it turned out, this particular boy was the nephew of the guy I was seeing for my own psychotherapy at the time. And this man was named, his uncle was named Dr. Gordon Cohen. Fantastic. I just saw what he was able to do just through words. He was able to help me grow, become more confident, become more of the person I was hoping to become. As I mentioned in our green room, Adi, I have dyslexia and I also have ADHD of the inattentive type, which meant I wasn't jumping around the room, but I was looking out the window, and I was harmless to the classroom dynamics, but I was very much harmful to my own academic performance. And Dr. Cohen really helped in a very sophisticated, gentle, kind manner in a way that I hope to help other people. So I went to college. I fell in love with psychology and Asian studies, actually. And I ended up living in Japan for a number of years. Why did I choose Japan? And why would a nearly 6'2", hairy Mediterranean male with big shoes live in Japan? By the way, where when you take off your shoes, they say that there is a negative correlation between one's intelligence and one's shoe size. So that was not very favorable to take off my shoes in the Genkan in Japan and have people see them. Anywho, why did I go there? I went there partially because I love the culture. I just love the culture. I love the food. I love the history. I think the aesthetics are beautiful. But the real reason I went there was because I wanted to learn about the human condition. I felt like, sure, I could go to Italy or France, but they're kind of cousins of the United States. It's not that different. But going to Japan was like a 180-degree turnaround, a very different approach to life. And I wanted to learn more about how humans really live. And what a better way than to do that form of yoga and study up and stretch myself and see, can this 6'2" guy live like a Japanese person and not be an ugly American and do things linguistically and culturally appropriately and see what am I like in this context.
Mhm.
So it really caused me to learn a lot about being a therapist. I did my first round of graduate school. I ended up leaving graduate school because my ADHD was undiagnosed and it was too academically rigorous at the time. So I thought, you know what I'll do? I'll join the corporate arena. you make more money anyway than being a starving student. And being in the corporate world was nice. I learned a lot of skills. I found out that I was really good at certain things that I wouldn't have known about, but it wasn't my bliss. And then who do I marry? A psychologist. And every night when we'd have dinner, she'd tell me about her day, and I'd say, "Damn it, that should have been my day." And she said, "Well, it still can be your day." And I said, "Well, no, it can't, because we've got a house, and we have a child, and we're gonna have another child." And she kept on saying, "Dude, stop being a victim. Go do it." And I thought I was being really mature, saying, "I made my bed. I'm going to sleep in it. I don't get to be a psychologist." But my buddy, in the three of you, probably will stay in touch. I hope you do anyway. And the three of you hopefully will offer support to each other. So if you can imagine, Adi, if you can imagine like having dinner someday with Mark or Johnny, and one of them says, "Get off your ass and do the hard thing." And that's exactly what my buddy Aaron said to me. We were eating sushi. We were in Honolulu. He was a fully licensed psychologist. He had the practice of my dreams.
Wow.
And he said, "Dude, freaking do it."
Hmm.
And finally, he convinced me to go back to graduate school and do the inconvenient thing of earning my doctorate later in life with a house and a mortgage and children and another job. Nights and weekends I went to school, and during the day I worked for the corporate job that I had. And then one day I tendered my resignation to make $10 an hour with no benefits for my postdoc, working with gang affiliated boys. And that's where I spent the next 2 years while I was finishing my license. And I really wanted it badly. I was like a dog who wanted to take a walk, but didn't get to take a walk for 10 years and finally got to take a walk. I wanted in for this field. And to this day, I am so stoked to be doing it.
Wow. That's an incredible journey, actually. It's great that you chose the decision to go back to school, get your doctorate, and then like move on, like do bigger things, right?
Yeah,
Thanks, Adi.
I mean, kind of like what you mentioned and what Audie touched on, just super inspiring story and cool to see how like your love of people and psychology is really played into what you've done and how you've oriented your life. Just kind of touching on some of the points of your story, you really mentioned mentorship. And I'm wondering, just thinking about like students going into the field of psychology and just coaching in general, what advice would you give for like finding a mentor and also like having the role of mentorship shape your like future path?
I will start with the two letters HU. Be humble, be hungry. Be humble in that your mentor may say things that you disagree with. They may give you feedback that you think is off mark. Hear them. Try to see if there's a grain of truth. Be
Mm.
hungry. Be hungry to learn. Offer them some form of value. When you have a mentor, it changes everything. It gives you such a quantum leap. The great news is it's synergistic. Believe it or not, the mentor also derives benefits. The mentor will be tested as well as they're testing you. They will test that as you ask them questions they may never have thought about, or you may offer them help. Now, you can't just go up to, let's say, you've got Dr. Patel is your mentor of your dreams. You don't walk up to Dr. Patel and say, "Hey, Dr. Patel, will you be my mentor?" Instead, you offer Dr. Patel help. Say, "Is there a project you need help with? I'll do it for free." I interviewed on my podcast a Nobel laureate in chemistry. He teaches at Duke Medical School. Bob Lefkowitz, an amazing human being. He said, "When I have a protege, you can call them mentees or proteges, but protege is the more appropriate term, I think. Mentor, protege. When I have a protege and they ask me, how am I going to learn from you? He says, just watch me. I can't tell you what you're going to learn, but watch me." That's one of the ways. Each mentor mentee protege relationship is different. I was telling you, Adi, because you're from the Chicago area, that my guy lived in Chicago. I don't know if any of you has ever heard of a book called Tuesdays with Maury, but it describes this wonderful kind of Mr. Miyagi Daniel relationship. And I had that with Dr. Alan Greenberger, whose memory is a blessing. He died 10 years ago, and he and I became, he So he initially must have seen me as kind of a curiosity because I made a proposal to him that he thought was absolutely bonkers, and he said, "Sure, I'll do it." I we won't get into that. It's in my book, but I'm very clear about what I'd asked him, and it was hilarious. He said, my 20 years of teaching, no one's ever asked me this, but I'm down. And what ended up happening was, and I showed up like a hungry, voraciously hungry person to learn from this man. There's a Japanese expression of, get the dirt of other people's fingernails, which isn't supposed to be a hygiene thing. It's supposed to be, like learn from their experiences, learn from their screw ups, learn from their successes. And that's exactly what ended up happening. And Dr. Greenberg and I, Alan, as I called him, became the best of friends. I was actually the MC, one of the three MCs at his retirement party, and up until the day he died, he and I were in touch, very close touch. He visited me twice in Japan, but also in the professional world. When I was in the corporate world, a fellow by the name of Martin Dorner became my mentor there, and he saw how I worked, and he saw something within me. That's the nice thing about a mentor. Sometimes they see a gift that you don't know you have. He said, "You are a communicator." I was like, "I am? Really? I didn't know that." And he said, "Yeah, you are. And you're going to be the mouthpiece of the office." And I was like, "Whoa." And initially I was, not great at what I was doing, but he did teach me how to become good at that thing. And I carry both of these men everywhere I go. I found mentors in the field of psychology. Some people are not really coachable. Some people actually believe they already know it all. And that's why I say humility and hunger are the prerequisites for a good relationship. From my vantage point, it's not an authoritative, this is the only, dictate of mentorship, but this is my experience and my understanding of it.
Yeah, I mean, awesome to hear like your perspective about taking a step back and like being willing to just like keep an open mind and learn, especially in like such an intimidating atmosphere where your mentor could be like so accomplished in their field and what they're doing.
Oh, dude, I have to tell you one other thing because it's just way too funny not to. All right. So one of the things, I was doing a project for Dr. Greenberg when I was new, and U2 was coming to town in Vegas.
Mm.
And my buddies said, "Dude, road trip, road trip." And we knew that we could get really, back then, if you can imagine, we get really cheap seats. And they did. They got cheap seats sitting up front for U2. And it was going to be a road trip. Who doesn't want to do a road trip? Well, guess what? I wasn't done with my project for Greenberger. I
Mm.
said no. These guys clowned on me so hard, but my commitment to Greenberger was so high that I was like, I would rather be clowned on by my peers than frowned on by my mentor. Like there was
Yeah.
no way. I didn't mean to make that rhyme, but
Yeah. I mean,
I
I think
know.
that's a prime example.
Yeah.
Wait, this
And
is, oh,
oh,
sorry.
sorry.
You
Yeah,
can
yeah.
go.
No, I was like, it's very like amazing that you like found a good mentor, and furthermore, you kind of decided to take on the hard path rather than just, go with the flow. Like, because like as you said, like you were already in like the professional field, and you were basically just doing what you want, and then like you decided, okay, like I think this works for me, but I still feel like intellectually hungry, like I do like explore more. And especially like after you have kids, it's really hard. Like I personally like known like a manager who did that actually, and I don't know, it was tough because he's manager and like a PhD, so it's like you have to like juggle through, which is very stressful at times. But and with regards to that, like I just wanted to like just talk a little more about your, the training, like the psychological training, right? So you said after a postdoc you work with, like people in gangs, is that right? So is that right?
yeah. So during my postdoc, I worked with people in gangs, and then after I was licensed, I worked with survivors of torture,
Right.
and then I worked in a geriatric institution, and then I had my own private practice, and I didn't know what my specialty would become, but all these, C-level heavy hitting guys from Silicon Valley started knocking at the door. But we're going to ask.
Right. So I was wondering, so what kind of experiences from like dealing with like those traumatized individuals kind of translate to like you like dealing with all these like C-suite executives because their experiences are very different, but there must have been something that was common, some psychological challenges that they were facing. So we just wanted to ask more about that.
At the core, there is so much that we have in common with all people, I've come to learn that the human experience is, is very different and very universal. So it's this contradiction. When I work with the guys from the C-suite, they have the same degrees of shame as the boys from the gang. Many of the boys from the gang had no father figures. There was a moment when I was working with the boys from the gang, and they're, yeah, I'm going to go there. I was just considering if I did want to go there. And one of the things we do during these kind of group sessions was I'd ask, what's new? Is any, and one of them said, I hooked up with somebody over the weekend. And I said, did you, he was a teenager. I said, did you wear protection? He's like, am I allowed to swear on this thing? Because this is a direct quote.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Or I'll just, for the sake of keeping it sanitary, I'll just say, he said, no, F her, blah, blah, blah. And he starts high-fiving the other guys in the room, that's her problem. And then I asked, how many of you have a father at home? And there was a silence in the room. You could hear a pin drop. They just kind of looked at each other, and one of them was like, dude, that's fucked up. And they realized that they needed to wear protection. But Carl Jung once said something that is totally life-changing if you're willing to take it in. And that is Carl Jung, by the way, one of the OGs of psychotherapy. Mm. He said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will drive you and you will think it was fate. So what was happening in that room? They had unconscious ideas. Their idea was that, women sucked, and they were actually hungry for male attention because they didn't have it. Their male attention was maybe a Sunday once a month over at San Quentin visiting their dad behind a glass thing, or in person, during this, but it was, the whole going into prison. And the same thing is true for anybody. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will drive you and you will think it was fate. So what do I do with all people, whether they're gang affiliated youth or grown men who are operating at the highest levels with incredible budgets? There is shame. Shame means I feel bad for who I am versus guilt. I feel bad for what I did. Shame usually causes us to be quiet. But the problem is we can't fix something if we don't talk about it. Yeah. Same is true. It doesn't matter if you're a gang member or a C-level person. The same thing is true for alexithymia. Alexithymia is a very important condition. And by the way, now that you know this word alexithymia, you're going to sound super smart at parties. Guess what it means? It means A, the absence of, lexi, word, thymia, feeling, the inability to put words to feelings. I'm sure all four of us have experienced, like, I feel like crap and I just don't know why I can't name it. Mm-hmm. But you do need to name it to tame it. I know that sounds corny because it rhymes, but it's absolutely true. You need to name it to tame it. An engineering concept that you may know is that a problem well described is a problem half solved. Well, it's a problem if we can't describe our problems, and we need a safe place to describe them. Otherwise, because like let's say, I say to one of my friends, like, man, I got this real problem and it's really embarrassing, and he shames me. And guys do that. Like, oh, dude, what's wrong with you, man? I may hold that for 10 years and it may fester inside of me, and it may screw my marriage. It may screw my ability to raise children. It may screw my job because I'm walking around with a rock in my shoe, but I'm not willing to take it out. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what therapy can do. It doesn't matter if you're a gang affiliated youth or a grown man who has an Ivy League MBA and has been working at the highest level with 1,000 people reporting. Right. It's the same cognitive structures. The limbic systems get hit the same way. And as men, we are socialized not to express our feelings. So male alexithymia is a real thing. Yeah. It's like we're putting black tape on our dashboards and expecting to know how much gas we have in the system, how fast we're going. No, the car is driving us. We're not driving the car.
That's
Wow.
really
Yeah,
like an
that's
interesting
profound.
perspective. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I was also thinking, so we had this interview last time with Dr. DePergola, and one of the things that really stuck to us was that like even like negative memories, like we shouldn't like take it out, you shouldn't like try to forget it because like it just manifests in different ways and it just makes, solving it more complicated because like there are some methods to like erase memories, quote unquote, but that just doesn't work. And it seems like it kind of circles back to this point where, okay, you do need to like make it more manifest. You shouldn't like hide it. As you said, like shame is like a big thing across like different cultures because if you admit to something that, the society disapproves or, like other people around you disapprove, it's pretty hard for you, but like, okay, it's there, but you just deny it exists, right? So, that
Dude, 1,000,000%. I mean, imagine this guy who says, I don't need nobody. I'm a self-starter. I'm using poor language, by the way, but I don't need anybody. I'm a self-starter, and I'm a rugged individualist. Well, what is the number one, uh, the worst punishment we can give in prison? It's solitary confinement.
Mhm.
And the fact is, we need to be around people. I can virtually guarantee you that if the three of you went to the gym together,
Yeah.
you'll
yeah,
lift more because you're with each other, especially if you're cheering each other on.
right.
And I can also tell you that there are social psychology studies that show that if the three of you go up to a mountain and take a look at how high the mountain is, and you determine how difficult it will be, you anticipate it, you give it a rating from 1 to 10. Let's say this one looks pretty tough. It looks like it's about, when you look at it alone, you think of it as an 8. But if you look at it together, you'll think of it as like a 6 or a 5. And the idea that the African proverb of, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I don't care what people say about AI. People will always need people.
Yeah.
We need people. That is how our brains are wired. And if we don't, and if we are able to over short circuit that, that would be a huge loss. Because I was just reading something from the dean of the design school at Stanford, Jeremy Utley. He said, love, our capacity to love, is one of the most important things that differentiates us from AI. AI is not going to be feeling love. It's not. I don't know if you've ever seen the terrifying movie Ex Machina, where this guy falls in love with an AI robot and she, manipulates him and he believes her. Uh, AI don't care. People do.
Wait, when it comes to AI, I actually 100% agree with you. Like, there are some detriments of just solely relying on AI. But do you at all see AI to have the potential to actually benefit society more than it could be a detriment to our society?
It really depends on who is shepherding AI. If forces for good are shepherding AI,
Yeah.
it will be to the benefit of society. It will be an assistant to society. It will allow us perhaps even to become more human.
Hmm.
If it's shepherded by other forces, darker forces, so it's the Jedi or the Sith. I mean, I love the thanks. I'm glad you guys know about Star Wars. A lot of young people don't. I'm just like, dude, come on, this is the greatest story ever told. But yeah, it all comes down to AI ethics. It all comes down to the intention of the creator. A scalpel can be used for surgery, and it can also be used to kill someone. It really depends on how that tool is used, and I think AI is no different.
Hmm. Oh, and follow up from there. Like you said that AI could have the potential to actually cause detriment if there are bad forces acting upon it. Um, do you think that there are like other like ethical concerns as well when it comes to AI, or what do you think about the ethic?
Oh, I wouldn't imagine that I'm an expert in this department, but absolutely. I mean, the number of bad things that could happen are very high, and that's why people like you, who I can tell are three nice people, need to be very well informed and very very good practitioners with the use of AI. Um, it's really it's going to be a question of who's supremely literate and who's not. And I just hope it falls in the hands primarily of those who are truly good. There will be for sure forces that are not kind who are using AI and using it just for solely for Machiavellian purposes, and perhaps worse. And the question is, and we all know about, the dark web and various hubs where people congregate to do bad things in current social media. The question is, what can you stay clear in your focus and not compromise your values, your virtues?
Kind of building off this relationship that we've been chatting about with AI and bridging it to the conversation we had regarding like emotional intelligence and therapy. How do you see like this role of being like emotionally transparent with yourself and others developing in a world where we're becoming increasingly integrated, like with AI and kind of with further distance and like virtual conversations, stuff like that?
So we need to have a good taxonomy. A taxonomy is, a way of defining things. A lot of us may miss overestimate. Let's say a lot of people may overestimate the power of connecting with friends by liking their posts on social media and say that is real contact. It's not. IRL rules. We need to be with humans. We need to be with plants. We know forest bathing is a real thing. It's not just a Japanese technique. It's been done throughout the millennia in all types of places. We need to be around nature. It's biophilia. We need to be around humans. Barbra Streisand has a song, and in it goes, "People who need people are the luckiest people in the world." I disagree. I think people who know they need people are the luckiest people in the world, and the people who actually deal with that need. The three of you are hanging out in person. More of that. Less, fewer walls. We will never fully know ourselves, but we will also hopefully have enough psychological safety. This is a term that's been given to us by Amy Edmondson out of Harvard Business School. Psychological safety is creating a space where all ideas are valid and that everybody's heard and people know that they are not going to be really badly clowned on. Like, it's one thing to clown on somebody in a loving way, as long as you have as long as you've reached, let's call it critical mass of trust. But just clowning on somebody without that trust, that actually breaks it down. We know the idea of what's the word I'm looking for, when somebody's being, blanking on the word for some dumb reason. It's a word that we use all the time when people are being sarcastic. Sarcasm comes from the same etymological root as to tear away flesh. Sarcasm. It's a cutting. Now, doesn't mean you can never be sarcastic. Sure, you can, but you also have to have a lot of poker chips in order to be able to do it. In order to be able to bust somebody's balls for a moment. In terms of the AI factor, yeah, AI is really attractive. It's really interesting. It's compelling, as is the web. All of you have been born post web's existence. So you can't imagine a world in which people would go to the park and talk to strangers or talk to people are on their devices generally when they're waiting for their coffee over at Phil's. Rather than talking to each other. And what I often ask people to do in my office, oftentimes they're very shy, they have social phobia. I say, talk to somebody in line, talk to the barista. When you're checking out a Trader Joe's, ask the person behind the counter, is there a product here that I should know about that I might not know about? And a great conversation will happen. And every time you go back to Starbucks, you'll have that person, or to Trader Joe's, you'll have that person. I know I went from Phil's to Trader Joe's, but Phil's to Starbucks, but maybe some of your listeners aren't as Phil's aware, but Phil's is great.
Always helps to know some good tips. There may be some special discounts that you not know about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bro, and guess how? Okay, Mark, to that point, there's a guy out of England who studied the science of luck. And the bottom line is there is no science about luck, except there seems to be a higher correlation between the number of people you know and the number of lucky breaks you get.
Mm.
So knowing lots of people, to your point, could reveal, how many times have you gotten hooked up with a discount or free merch just because you knew somebody? When I was driving my younger son, no, actually my older son, Avon, to his grandparents' house during spring break, he was probably, I don't know, in second grade. And we passed Roku. Roku was just a young company at the time. Streaming devices. I hope everybody knows what that is. But it was tiny at the time, and I was an early adopter of Roku. So I'm like, dude, we're a little bit early to get to grandpa and grandma. You want to go visit Roku? He's like, we can't do that. I said, well, why not? So I go into Roku and I see the person behind the counter. This is the kind of stuff my son was, exposed to from a young age. I said, hey, I'm a super fan of Roku. And they're like, great. And I said, is there anybody I could talk to about just how awesome it is? And she's like, sure. And so this head engineer comes out looking a little confused, and he says, how can I help you? And I was like, yeah, I just wanted you to know your product's amazing. What do you got going on in the future? Tell me about it. It's almost like I was podcasting.
Yeah.
And he lit up. He definitely wanted to tell me all about it. And my son was just like, whoa, this is so cool. The stranger is telling us all about, like the future of, what's going on. And the guy looked at me, he's like, I'm gonna hook you up. I'm like, what? And he said, and he gave us the latest Roku streaming device. And he just gave it. He's just like, here. And I'm sure this has happened to you guys. Now, this is not what it was meant to do. It wasn't like I went in with some, Machiavellian dictate of like, I'm going to, influence this individual. No, I literally went in with my enthusiasm and my supreme curiosity, which he could tell was real. And he's just like, yeah, I like this guy. This is funny. Yeah, I'm going to hook him up. So to your point, Mark, yes.
It definitely helps. I mean, like, who would have thought? Like, the guy's a lead engineer.
Yeah.
Say again.
Random dude. Just
He's
like,
a lead engineer.
well,
Is
I
it?
mean, the guy you said like gave Roku's,
That's
right?
right.
Yeah, I was like, what?
Yeah, it was really cool, and he was such a nice guy, and I think we're still friends on LinkedIn. So I
Wow.
mean, so it's talk to people. You'll find yourself getting luckier.
Mhm.
Definitely.
I think it definitely helps to be like social in like this day and age, especially like with technology. Like a lot of the people I see, like with all these new technologies, like or not even new, but like just like their phones, like they're like a lot less social.
Mm.
I mean, they may be social online and they may think of that as actually being social, but they're not actually like aware of like the real world and like what's going around them. So I think definitely like just being exposed to like the real world and just talking to people in general, like in a real setting and showing like enthusiasm, as you said, like just genuinely helps like form connections between people.
Could not agree more. My nickname in high school, given to me by my the drummer of my garage band, was Enthusiasm. And so I was Enthusiasm, the bass player, and it was the name stuck because it's absolutely true. I remember being in college, by the way. I was exactly your age, and I was eating, and a woman across the table said to me, "Wow, you're so easily impressed." I said, "I'm not easily impressed. I just have a very high threshold for appreciation of things and people." And I stand by that idea. Um, I'm noticing, by the way, Adi, I've just got to ask you, what's up with your shirt? Just got to know what's on there.
Oh, the shirt. It says beams of light. I don't know. I thought it's a decent like graphic tee, so I just got it. And then
That's awesome. I love it. And there's a guy holding a basketball.
yeah, basketball. Uh,
You know the player or no?
no, it's not anyone specific. I mean, it doesn't show his head.
Ah,
It's
yeah,
just
that's
like
true.
a
Yeah,
graphic.
yeah.
And I'm just curious to know what does the shirt bring out in you or mean to you?
Bring out in me. I mean,
Yeah.
it has like no significance really, but I mean, I just really like having like graphic tees and like I guess like it's just a form of expression, I guess, you know?
You felt connected to it in some way.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that there was something real there.
Yeah.
And I love that because oftentimes we just go with what we're told to go with, but that looks like a one of a kind thing with a one of a kind statement, and it's got a nice yellow, uh, kind of bright vibe to it. So I would imagine one of the things we know for sure is that how we dress changes us, how we decorate our dorm rooms in our college and what pictures we put up changes us. I remember I put up these really depressing, artists on my wall, and because I wanted to seem like really intense and deep and cool. But being surrounded by that, that's it kind of shaped me at that time. And maybe it wasn't calling forth. What did it say again? Be the light. What's it say?
The light, beams of light.
Beams of light. Yeah, like I like beams of light.
Mhm.
That was not the dorm room I had created in college, and so I learned, like, okay, maybe I should be a little more intentional here. And a
Mhm.
lot of times we're so disconnected from who we are, and we don't get to know who we are. We think that we're having social interactions by connecting online, but to quote a recent podcast guest, Laurie Santos, who runs the Happiness Lab at Yale and has one of the best podcasts in the world, she said it's basically the NutraSuite of connection. It's not real, guys. Like it's a fine supplement to like see that, oh wow, somebody liked my post and somebody wrote a really cool comment. That's great. Oh, I haven't heard that guy from like 5 years. How nice. But that's not the same as even having a micro connection as you're leaving Trader Joe's with, some rando that you're talking with, or the person checking you out. I don't mean checking you out romantically. I mean checking you out in terms of transactionally. Although all the more reason to check out from Trader Joe's if you can find a really good a really good connection like that.
Mhm.
Kind of speaking on like, I know we've been talking a lot about social media and this like transactional element of connections that like online is kind of taking it. And like kind of referring to your anecdote earlier about Roku. What do you see as like a way to kind of bridge the gap between like forming these like spontaneous, meaningful connections rather than like relying on like the like quick release dopamine like connections that you were talking about?
So be a little try me again because I want to make sure I answer your question right, Johnny.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just speaking on like, what do you see as the big difference between like forming a connection where you interpret it as like it's like meaningful,
Mm-hmm.
it's like spontaneous, it's just because you have a genuine curiosity versus one that feels good because it's like long standing and you get reaffirmed through kind of these false indicators on like social media that create an illusion of connection rather than like something substantive.
So there's a lot of luck and a lot of intention that goes into connection itself. The more people you connect with, the more curious you are. The more you can cultivate your own curiosity, the more, uh, quite frankly, ways that you're going to find connection. Somehow, when somebody tells you, oh, yeah, I lived in Seoul for a number of years, you will have known something about Seoul, whether it's the Gangnam neighborhood, like as you looked it up and you're like, oh, Gangnam style, like what does that actually mean? And lo and behold, it's like better than the Beverly Hills of Beverly Hills of Los Angeles, and you find out more of what that means, and you're able to connect with somebody. And they say, "Oh yeah, yeah, I ate actually at a restaurant in the Gangnam neighborhood," and it's like, "Wow, wow, that's nuts." Um, or if you're able to find just like the more you know about life, the luckier you'll become, the more ways you're going to be able to find genuine interest in other people, and they'll know if it's real. That's one of the things that, I mean, each of you has been asked kind of a question that was maybe somewhat pro forma, and you're like, okay, yeah, that didn't feel like a real question. They're just asking it to like waste time versus like, oh, that person really wants to know.
Mhm. Yeah.
And oh, that person really wants to know comes from an earnestness, a genuineness, a kindness, a humanity
Mm.
that can only come from the human heart. That's something that AI will never be able to replicate. Whereas we can, when we're online, it's literally just a transcript, and you can read it any way you want to.
Right.
Yeah.
There's an old, cognitive test of like, I didn't take the money, and I didn't take the money. You can read that, and you read it any way you want. I didn't take the money means, well, somebody else took the money. I didn't take the money. I didn't take it, but I did something else with it. I didn't take the money. Well, I took something else, but not the money. But when we see, I'm using that expression just very
Yeah.
poorly, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
All we're seeing is a transcript. There is no, you can put an emoji there, makes it a little better. But how long? What's the half life? Do you feel it for a half a day? Like, oh my God, that person really liked the crap out of my post. I feel so good about life versus I just got to hang out with Mark, Addie, and Johnny. And it was, I'm sorry, Mark, Addie, and Johnny. And it was freaking awesome. This was an amazing thing. You're going to feel that a lot longer. The human brain needs real. It does not want the fake.
It definitely does. I mean, like you'll know if it's fake or real. And like I do agree, like you may think like, oh, like, like I completely made it, but maybe the person was like, yeah, I kind of saw like what you really wanted, it's kind of we're very tactful, like actually more than what we would expect. But I was just kind of like just out of curiosity, right? I think like the best way to like know someone is to actually like, get invited to their home because like that's where you see like what designs they like and like what kind of food they eat and what kind of lifestyle and like
And
there
what
are
kind of books they read. That's a really, if they have books on their
that's very
shelf, you really learn a lot.
that's very true, actually. And like it's where like you kind of like see a lot of things, like including like the personality and like what that person does for fun, stuff like that. And it does like spark a lot of curiosity, right? So it's kind of like an open-ended question, but if you could be invited to someone's home, it could be like anybody, like past or present. Like who would it be and why?
I love that question. Okay, before I go there, just one second, Mark. I remember, by the way, we often have these little pop-ups that happen in our mind that distract us from what's really important. So
Mhm.
when I was going to do my semester abroad in Japan, the external studies manager asked me, like, where do you want to live? And I said, I want to live in the dorm. And he said, but you said you want to learn about the people of Japan and you want to learn the language. I said, yeah. I
Mhm.
said, but I don't want to like live at somebody's house. And he said, Adam, just walk me through this for a second. How are you going to learn about how the people live and Japanese if you're just hanging out with bros from the United States drinking beer?
True.
And I was like, oh, damn. I guess I'm doing the homestay. So I did the homestay. But to your point, let's see. If I could go to anybody's house and have a really meaningful hang. Um, okay, hang on one second. That's such a good one. First of all, the first person that comes to my mind would be Barack Obama. That would be just like, oh my God, that would be so insane. Like, oh, that would be like the greatest thing. Um, Throughout history, I mean, I've always been curious about what Abraham Lincoln was really like.
Wow.
Like, what was that dude really like? I mean, he was so thoughtful and he was so, if you're familiar with system one and system two thinking that Danny Kahneman talked about from Princeton, yeah, you guys
Yeah.
are nodding.
Mhm.
Like, he was such a great system two thinker. He could do the hard problems. And I would love to go through hard problems with somebody like him. Um, I mean, I've always longed for the hug of Oprah Winfrey. That would be amazing, to just like be in her presence for a little bit and talk with her about life in Santa Barbara. Would be amazing. But let's see. There's so many people. I mean, of course, Moses in the Bible would be totally amazing. I know he had a speech impediment, at least if the Bible's correct. But it would be really interesting to talk to somebody like him. I mean, I can't even imagine what his reference points would be, like, like somebody like that. uh so those are a few those are a few of the people that I'd love to hang out with.
Yeah.
You do have a list. I
A
mean,
good crew.
Yeah.
For sure. And of course, I'd love to like have burgers with John. Oh, he doesn't do them anymore, he's a vegetarian, but John Stewart, that'd be really interesting. I guess a vegetarian meal.
Oh, wow. Are you vegetarian?
I'm not. I'm very much into all food.
Okay.
Just
That's
any
great
food.
actually. You mentioned you lived in Japan. Were you living in like someone else's house, or were you living in the dorms in
As
the?
a student for that semester, I was living in someone else's house, and when I was a summer scholar, I lived in someone else's house. But when I was employed by Sumitomo Metal Industries as one of their, they called it an international business instruction person. I was an English teacher. Come on, let's call it what it was.
Mhm.
But I was teaching people how to do business abroad, and I lived in a an apartment that was awesome, except it was situated. I swear to you, this sounds so Blade Runner. It was so Blade Runner. I don't know if you've seen Blade Runner the movie, but there was something so Blade Runner esque about living in Osaka. It's very industrial, and you have these kind of interesting purple sunsets. I was living sandwiched between a garbage facility and a sewage facility, and but it was overlooking Osaka Castle, which was the most amazing view. So here I am, this 22-year-old guy living on the 12th floor of this public housing unit for inexpensive. It was, I'm going to guess, about 120 square feet, um, all told, including the bathroom. It was very small, and I felt like a king. And I loved it. I'd
Yeah.
ride around on my bicycle. I'd take the trains, took minimum of 6 trains a day to get to work and back. And I can actually say, with that, you didn't ask this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I can absolutely say that every day I gained, like, I'm going to call them experience points, and they don't mean anything, but I feel like I gained 100 experience points every day. Like, I learned so much about life just living there, and just seeing how people did things differently from the United States, seeing
Yeah.
the cultural mores, and making friends over there, and working with people, and getting into conversations, and finding out, like, wow, we're looking at the same thing so differently.
Mhm.
And can I lean into your perspective and try to see it through your eyes? It
Yeah.
was so much fun, and it really helped my empathy.
What are some of the things that you learned while in Japan and like through getting these experiences? Like just like an example or two.
Absolutely.
Um,
There are linguistic tendencies in Japan. You've probably heard about some of them. But like, if somebody says it will be difficult, now if in the United States we say it will be difficult, we'll say, well, let's work with that idea. In Japan, that means there is a better chance of you breaking a brick wall with your fist than this happening. And so there are linguistic,
yeah.
cultural mores. So certain things that you learn. I learned how to be quiet. I am as you can tell, I'm a very enthusiastic guy,
Hmm.
and sometimes the feedback I'd get was, oh, Adamu-san, I Adam-san, I get very tired when I talk with you. And it was because I was asking so many questions, and they wanted, they liked silence. I wasn't used to it. I came from, a very talky, excited, exuberant Jewish household where talking was, all the time. So, and that's absolutely not how it's done. And that you can sit with people who you like and be silent. Oh, what an idea. Like, that seemed totally shocking to me. I only sat in silence with people I didn't like. But in Japan, you could sit in silence with people you do. And I've also learned that with introverts in the United States, that's also the case.
Hmm.
Totally.
Yeah.
Kind of moving back to the idea of connection. To end us off, my final question is just how is like your idea and knowledge of connection like developed throughout your journey of parenthood?
Mm, Johnny, wow. I have, I remember hearing a thought leader say, you can live a full life without being a parent, but you'll never know what it's like to be a parent unless you're a parent. And I believe it was Carlos Castaneda, I'm going to say it poorly, he said that when you have a child, it's as if your own chest is carved open and your heart is set out into the world. That's how I feel about both of my sons. I could not have known that. I have more empathy when I look into either of my son's eyes, and know that their wishes are my wishes. Like, I want them to get what they want,
Mm.
assuming that they're, not saying something absolutely, reckless, which is not usually the case. I want their happiness. They provide me with, when I wrote my dedication to my book, I said that my sons are like rockets under my feet.
Mhm.
They give me motivation to earn, to learn, to be a better person, to hit it hard because I want to bring it back for them. I want to demonstrate what it's like to hit it hard because I want them to hit it hard, but I also want to bring the goods to them in terms of my own firmware so that I'm a better father and that I'm hearing them well, so that I am attuned to them and help them figure out who they are, not who I think they should be.
Mhm.
Mm.
Um, I really want to know their realities. And I also am very aware that they're growing up in a time that is different from my own, where in my own technology may have some applications, but where some of my technologies may be antiquated and I have to know the difference.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's been an eye-opening, heart-opening experience. And one last thing that I would have to say is I had no idea how utterly painful and devastating it would be to drop my own son off at college. Now he got into the college of his dreams.
Yeah.
And so everything went right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I drop him off and then I spit ugly cry as I'm driving home. It goes right on the windshield. Like I am it, and I would never have known how much that hurt. When people said that their child left home, I would always be, before I was a parent, I was like, that's great. Great news. They got into the college of their dreams and now you get the house back. That's partially true. But the other big truth is, oh my God, I'm so devastated. I miss my son so much. And when I see him, I mean, just talking about it right now, I'm feeling my own eyes tear up. He surprised me yesterday. He came home for a
Oh, God.
day, just and he pulled a massive prank on me, and it's never happened before. I hope it happens again. And he got me on video, just like he just decided to, you know, to mess with me in a good way. My other son is off on spring break, and he's going to drive him off to hang at college with him. But we were I thought my younger son, none of us knew. My wife didn't know, my younger son didn't know, and Avon just blew us out of the water by just showing up, and I would never know those feelings if I
Mhm.
didn't have those boys.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you for talking with us. It's been really cool, especially like just to hear about your perspective and especially like how your idea of connection has evolved throughout your life and like the different stages. And it's just been really cool to hear your perspective on everything.
Oh, I gotta tell you, Adi, Johnny, Mark, you guys are awesome. I'm doing it in alphabetical order, not in terms of who I like the most, but I like all three of you quite a lot. I am so heartened to see technologists like the three of you who are thoughtful. I can tell very kind men. By the way, kindness, we've actually got the values and virtues scientifically dialed in. Kindness is one of the 24 known values and virtues and human character strengths.
Hmm.
The three of you have that. I hope that you will always be driven by that, and asking, is it kind?
Yeah.
And this does not have to be out of sync with technology. Technology can be kind. We can use the scalpel to save lives rather than to harm lives. And with the three of you uh, involved in tech, I feel very comforted in knowing that at least three voices will be adding to that.
We're
Thanks a
humbled.
lot.
Yeah,
But yeah,
thank
Thanks a
you.
thank
lot.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, your perspectives like really like taught us a lot during this interview. I'd say I definitely learned a lot about just like different aspects of connection and like being more social. It like definitely helped.
Right
And
on. It's really funny, Adi. When I look at you, I see myself, and I mean, you and I, when I was in college, I looked a lot like you. I mean, like a lot. It's really, really cool to see.
Interesting.
that's interesting. Yeah.
I guess like for me as well, I mean, yeah, like first of all, like thank you so much for your time and like I really like enjoyed the conversation we had just now, right? Like about like, importance of connection, even though the way it works could be very spontaneous, right? You just walk into the store and talk to people. Like it just builds connections like that. So, and I think also like the important distinction between like virtual relationships versus like real relationships, because like I feel like oftentimes we conflate the two, but like you're telling us there is actually a difference and we should be aware of that. Like we should not like just treat one as a substitute for the other.
Mhm.
And yeah, thanks for all the insights you gave
I'm
us.
so glad, Mark. And each of us has a different quota for IRL. Get to know what yours is.
Definitely.
Awesome.
I think I don't know, like for me, like I kind of like do that a lot, but seems like, maybe it doesn't hurt to like just try it more. But yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
Definitely stretch yourself. One of the things we know about deathbed studies, when people are in their deathbeds, the
Mm,
thing that they regret is not having tried. They don't care about the failures.
right.
And the other thing they care about is having left love on the table when they didn't love as much as they could have. So those are two really good lessons from the dying. So it can cause us to live more
Yeah.
fully. It's kind of carpe diem, Dead Poet Society.
A memento mori moment, I guess.
The memento mori, my man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um, I think this concludes the interview. I'm gonna end the recording.